So Greenbelt community organizations and businesses hosted a discussion led by Charles Marone, founder of Strong Towns, a nonprofit research and educational organization that looks to help cities and towns cope with the skyrocketing costs of maintaining aging infrastructure. The biggest challenge being posed by a legacy of suburban sprawl in the city of Detroit is an example of both initial success and collapse. So this guy covered a lot.
He did, and it started off more of a big city kind of a focus, you know. Okay, so Greenbelt is not a Detroit kind of city. We are a suburb of a larger metropolitan area. So, in a sense, you could look at what he said as sort of how can a city invest their resources, you know, tax dollars, their income, in a way that will best support the city and that will be sustainable, that will provide a quality of life, that will balance the money that's spent with the quality of life, which is, you know, schools and transportation and so forth for the residents, roads, etc. So that's really the topic. So you have to kind of, you know, scale down in your brain from Detroit to Greenbelt. So, and really, for me, one of the takeaways was make smaller investments. Exactly. You know, don't try to get the big long-term investment, the big, you know, big money, big intensity or density of people in a, you know, building. But so, for example, a GHI kind of community is, from what I understood him to say in the article, ideal in terms of the tax revenues that come from that size, that, you know, that density that a community can use. So, you know, try to build up what you have. Also, same with businesses. Right. You know, try to provide resources for established businesses, and then make smaller neighborhood level investments, crosswalks, bike paths, sidewalks, that kind of thing. And Greenbelt is working on that. They've done some. They have more to do, but that's, you know, not an unknown thing to our council.
Let's move on to the October 15th City Council meeting. Right. Heated discussions around development plans for Beltway Plaza, which Council Member Rodney Roberts characterized as gross overdevelopment. Among his concerns, designated open spaces, overcrowded schools, and complaints about city services from our newest neighbors, Greenbelt Station residents.
Right. So the good news about the article and about the meeting is that important concepts, topics were presented. What Mr. Roberts had to say was valuable. You know, we need to, you know, have those on the table, keep them on the table, you know, realize those issues that this, again, like we mentioned, you know, with the Strong Towns thing, this huge development, okay, how are you going to pay for, you know, schools and for city services? Already, the article mentions Greenbelt Station. There's been some complaint about either the level or the quality of city services. So, you know, at what point do they get stretched too thin? Also the green space idea. Now at the meeting, Terry Ruby with the city mentioned that, you know, that will be discussed at a future point. Right. So important ideas were put on the table, important realities that we need to stay aware of. Now, the downside is that it really wasn't up to the council to decide that at that moment. It's an MOU. Zoning is a county thing, not a city thing. And according to what Council Member Judith Davis said at the meeting, we're lucky that the MOU at least requires the developer or any other possible future developer to take city concerns into consideration. So at least we have a seat at the table to raise our issues. So that's a good thing. So this is an ongoing story. It's developing. You know, we keep our eye on it. But let me add one other thing, and that is in the same paper, in the same edition of the News Review this week, you'll see two articles in which people running for council answer questions. And one is about exactly the topic we've been talking about, how to balance limited tax income from taxes and all the ways the city gets its income, with rising needs, street repair and to the crosswalks and all those things, parks we're talking about. And so each, they give their opinions about how to balance that.
Because infrastructure ages and at some point needs to be replaced, and that's when the costs really go up.
Right. And how do you make best use of your money to get the I guess the biggest bang for your buck is a way of saying it. And then there's another article in which council candidates respond to questions by what I call the Greenbelt Progressive Coalition. It's a group of progressive groups that represent various racial equality and other issues like that. And it's a question about not just about being green, not just how to make Greenbelt more green, but how to spread those resources to make sure that greenness happens both in the west side and the east side as well. So both of those are, it's sort of a, how do we spend our money, and what do our leaders, what do council members have to say about it?
Finally, voter registration. We have 1,000 newly registered voters, and 16 and 17-year-olds will be voting for the first time this year.
Yeah, that's a very exciting thing. And lest you look at that article and say, facts and figure, this percentage, that number, the other number. This topic, the number of people registered to vote, speaks directly to the issue of civic involvement, of people involved, whether they're involved on committees or directly in governance, or even involved to the extent that they vote. In the past, we've had a pretty low voting turnout.
Right. I think we discussed that somewhere around 2,500 people actually show up to vote, and that doesn't quite break the 19% line. Yeah.
No. So we had the biggest growth in people registering to vote on the west side, which includes Franklin Park and Greenbelt Station, and they vote at the Spring Hill Lake Rec Center precinct. So that was the biggest growth, and that's good news. There was also growth in the other precincts, and given there are 2 precincts in the center of Greenbelt and 2 in the east, still West lags behind in terms of registered voters. There's about 37% increase or of the registered voters live in center or east.
Right. So let's hope our turnout is better than it's been in the past. We encourage our folks to do that. And otherwise, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on Greenbelt this week.
Glad to do it.